Last year, I stood here and I opened with the following words: that this is a day which is meant to shake us to our core. And this year, I think the words are even more relevant. I'm sure, like many of you, the last few days, the last couple of weeks, have tirelessly and again, of maybe even obsessively, following the news from Israel. And I've been thinking again and again, continuously, what should I be thinking about this Tish B'Av, with all of the events that are happening in Israel the last few weeks, and at these very moments as we speak, as we sit here at the beginning of Tish B'Av. What should we be thinking about this Tish B'Av differently than every other Tish B'Av? And the first thing that came to my mind is the halacha and the custom, which is that on Tish B'Av we mourn and we mention not only the destruction of the first and second Bet Mikdash, the first and second temples which were destroyed on Tisha B'Av, but also all the other calamities that happened not only on Tisha B'Av, but the calamities that have happened and befallen the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, throughout our history in Galut, throughout our exile. And to mention just a few that we'll be mentioning in the Kinot soon, we'll be mentioning in the Kinot tomorrow. The destruction of German Jewry during the First Crusades in the year of 1096. Many of the Kinot we'll be saying tonight and tomorrow revolve around the events of the First Crusades, when the three major communities in Germany were destroyed. The expulsion of Jews from England in the year 1290, which happened on Tisha B'Av. The expulsion of the Jews from Spain, which happened on Tisha B'Av of 1492. The massacres of Khmelnytsky, which happened around the date of Tisha B'Av in the year 1648. And even the liquidation of the Warsaw Ghetto in 1942 happened on Tisha B'Av. We will be saying a special kinah for the destruction of Jewry and the Holocaust as well. All of these and many, many more we will be mourning tonight and tomorrow. So I thought to myself, maybe we'll just add to that list what has happened in Israel the last few weeks. 64 soldiers killed, 6 civilians killed, 70 people, 70 Jews killed in the last 3 weeks, hundreds injured. And possibly the most frightening of all, I'm sure many of you have heard, but throughout this campaign, this war in Gaza, one of the things that was revealed is these tunnels. And one of the things that we discovered about these tunnels, and one of the things I remember during the first few days, that I couldn't understand, if all these tunnels have been there for years, 2 years, 3 years, some of them 6, 7 years, why haven't they been using them? 30-something tunnels being dug 30 meters, 90 feet, 100 feet underground, from homes in Gaza, from schools in Gaza, right underneath playgrounds. A friend of my wife's friend from Israel posted a few days ago something just, it's mind-boggling. She says she lives in a caravan in one of the little kibbutzim right around Gaza. And one night, about, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, she hears a knock on the door on her caravan. A caravan is like it's not much, really. And she hears a knock on the door. She opens up the door, and there's a few soldiers standing there. Her heart missed a beat, and then they told her, "We need your family to please get out, step out of your caravan. We think there's the opening of a tunnel right beneath your caravan." So they stepped out, they brought in a crane, they picked up the caravan, moved it, they dug 2 meters down, and they found a tunnel underneath her house, underneath her caravan, where she sleeps with her kids. And they revealed, and the army has revealed, they found the plans and they interrogated some of the terrorists that they captured, that the master plan was that this upcoming Rosh Hashanah, when I'm telling you it's not fantasy, you read it on the news, if you haven't heard it yet, check. This coming Rosh Hashanah, the plan was was to have hundreds of Hamas terrorists, hundreds, maybe thousands, go into these tunnels all at once during Rosh Hashanah, infiltrate into Israel through these tunnels. They had full IDF uniforms. And they're going to pop up dozens, possibly hundreds of towns, kibbutzim, settlements, all over the place, all over the southern part of Israel. And just go and start killing and slaughtering men, women, and children on Rosh Hashanah. It's difficult to even imagine what we'd be facing, how we could possibly deal with it. How would the army know who's an enemy, who's a friend? We can't even imagine. It's frightening. I didn't even let myself, when I've been talking about this last few weeks, even allow myself and the people I've been speaking to allow their imagination to flow with it. It's too scary. But today we can. The hundreds, if not thousands of people that would have been killed, and the dozens or hundreds or thousands of people who would have been kidnapped. It's unfathomable. Yom Kippur War and the surprising Yom Kippur War would look like children's play compared to what could have happened in the Rosh Hashanah War. So I thought to myself, well, with all of these calamities that have happened throughout Jewish history, let's just add in what has happened the last few weeks. Let's add it into our mourning. This is what Jews do. We have a day which we mourn all of the calamities and all of the troubles that have come since the destruction of the Beit Mikdash, since the destruction of the temple throughout the exile. But I found myself very uneasy with the idea, and I wasn't sure why. Until I came across the following, just 2-3 days ago, the following statistic. I want you to listen carefully. In all of the wars of Israel, since Israel was established as a state, there have been 23,169 soldiers killed. 23,169 soldiers have been killed since Israel was established as a state until today, well, until this recent campaign, killed in the IDF. That is equivalent to the amount of Jews who died in Auschwitz in a single day. In a single day, just a little bit over 20,000 Jews were killed in Auschwitz a day during the height of the final solution. So during 66 years of Israel's existence, 23,169 soldiers have died by the hands of our enemies protecting the Jewish people, which comes out equal to the amount of Jews that died in Auschwitz in a single day. And I realize that this means that something fundamental has changed in Jewish history. And I cannot connect the events of the last few weeks to all of the calamities and all of the destructions and all of the terrible things that have happened to us throughout our history. We no longer are at the whim of anyone who wants to do anything to us. We no longer can be kicked out of places at someone's whim. We can no longer be extorted. We can no longer be massacred. We are no longer at anyone else's behest. And then I remembered a second halacha, which talks about a completely different aspect of Tisha B'Av. And that is the fact that, strangely enough, tomorrow, during tefillah, during prayer, we will not be saying Tachanun. Tachanun is a special prayer that we say every single day, in which we lament our sins and we lament the destruction. And strangely enough, on Tisha B'Av, we will not be saying Tachanun. And the rabbis in the Gemara say the strangest reason for this. They say because the pasuk calls Tisha B'Av a moed. Moed is a festive time, which is strange. It is the saddest day of the year. It is the day that represents all the horrible things that have happened to us during 2,000 years of exile. And the pasuk calls it a moed, a festive day. How could that be? So Chachamim explain that the reason it's called a moed is because in the future, when the final redemption, the Geulah comes, this day will be turned into a festive day, into a moed. And because of this idea that it is called a moed, there are several halachot that stem from this. We do not say tachanun. Once we come to midday, to chatzot, to the half point of the day, which is around 1:20 tomorrow, we decrease the intensity of the mourning. We no longer sit on stools as we do when we mourn. In the morning, we will not be putting on tefillin and a talit, because they are a sign of pride. They are a sign of pe'er, of richness, or of. And then mincha, after the half point of the day, we'll be putting on a tefillin, we'll be putting on talitot, we'll be sitting on high chairs already. There's a medrash that fits well with this. It says that the Mashiach was born on chatzot of Tisha B'Av. There's actually an interesting custom that I just learned of today, that some communities and some communities have the custom after chatzot, after midday, to start cleaning the house, to represent this idea that the Mashiach, that the salvation begins already at the half day, at the half point of the day, and that one day, this day will be a festive day. So to understand the relationship between these two halachot, between these two customs, the custom of lamenting and taking all of the tragedies of the Jewish people and folding it into this one black day of tremendous sorrow, and the custom of decreasing the mourning and calling it a moed, a festive day, and not saying tachanun and not lamenting fully, to reconcile the two, what came to mind as I was struggling with this and trying to understand the perspective of these days that we're living in right now, these weeks, I'd like to share with you something very personal from my own life, as I did last year. My wife and I have been married now for 16 years. Our oldest son is 9. And the reason it took us so long till we had children is not by our own choice. For many years, for 7 years, we tried to have children when we were unsuccessful. They were very, very difficult times for us. Many of our friends, our family, people who got married after us were having children. It was extremely, extremely difficult for us. And there were many times throughout those 7 years we got extremely depressed. We gave up hope. Not officially. We continued praying. We continued saying the tefillot. We continued giving tzedakah. We continued doing all those things. We continued going to the doctors. We continued doing all those things, going through the motions of attempting to have children. But there's a little small part of us that at some point, after another treatment, another specialist, had lost hope. And the sorrow that came with that was very deep and very real. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, we now have 4 children, which many of you hopefully have met. And now we also find ourselves extremely concerned about our children. When they hurt themselves, when they're sad, when they come home from school and they're crying, when we see them not behaving appropriately, when we see them fighting. And when I was thinking about the relationship between the two parts of Tisha B'Av, the relationship between those two experiences of my life as a parent came to mind. The sorrow and the almost hopelessness that existed before I had children versus the concern and sometimes the sorrow that comes with having children. Everyone here knows the tremendous concern and fear that you have. God forbid something should happen to your children, or when something happens to them, the concern. It's indescribable. But it is so much better than the sorrow and concern and worry that one has before he has children or when he cannot have children. Now, why do I use this example? I use it, first of all, because it resonates extremely strongly with me. And it helps me explain what I think the relationship is between these two parts of Tisha B'Av. The events of these days are not similar in any way, shape, or form to all the calamities, tragedies that happened to us throughout our history. The events that we talked about before in the destruction of German Jewry, the expulsion from England, from Spain, the Holocaust, which is just so recent, they all belong to the first part of Tisha B'Av. They belong to the part of Tisha B'Av where there isn't hope. There is just darkness. It is so dark, we cannot even say the word shalom. We cannot greet each other. We cannot put on tefillin. We cannot do mitzvot. We cannot put on a talis. There is just blackness. There is deep and deep sorrow and sadness for what has been lost, for all the troubles, for all those Jews who died, thousands of years, all the Torah that was destroyed. So all those things belong to the first part of Tisha B'Av. But the events of the last few weeks belong to the second part of Tisha B'Av. The part where we are filled with concern. We definitely, of course, still have the sorrow and the worry. But they belong to the point in Tisha B'Av where Mashiach has been born already. Where we believe that out of the destruction also comes salvation. The events of the last few weeks, the events of these days, these years that we live in, the last 66 years, belong to the days that fill our mourning with hope. They fill them with the belief that it is not just darkness, that there is light at the end of the tunnel of darkness, that our mourning is filled with meaning. There was a time where we mourned almost blindly. There was a time for many years, for generations upon generations, where we mourned blindly out of blind faith that one day, someday, something will be different. We don't know when. For the foreseeable future, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, it all looked the same. Tragedy after tragedy with no hope other than blind faith. But we now live in a time where we continue to mourn for those things which we do not yet have. For Bet HaMikdash. For the closeness to Hashem which we can't fully grasp yet. To the fulfillment, to the ability to access all of Torah. We forget that the majority of mitzvot we are void from. All of the rich life of Torah and mitzvot which we all are here, day in, day out, week in, week out to observe. It is only a fraction of the entire Torah, which without Eretz Yisrael, without the land of Israel, without Bet HaMikdash, without a temple, don't even exist. We don't even have access to only to a fraction of the Torah. So though we continue to mourn for these things, these past few days fill us with hope. Let these days that we live in fill our mourning. Not our mourning tomorrow morning. Fill our mourning, our avelut, with sorrow for what was lost. And out of that, belief in what is yet to come, because of the certainty of what we see unfolding in front of our very eyes. And that gives, I think, a very, very different perspective. It gives a hopeful perspective. Now, yes, the next few hours and tomorrow morning, I want to focus on the sorrow. We focus on the tragedy. But as we go through the day, and as we talk and as we follow the news today and tomorrow, the next few days, let us realize that something in Tisha B'Av has changed. Because Tisha B'Av is a day which in itself holds the promise of hope. And we mourn because we believe that this morning can fill us with hope and belief and certainty that there is an end to it. And the more our mourning is filled with that hope, with that certainty, the more we will live to see that day. And let's remember this, and let us, to the best of our ability, mourn with that hope, and also find ourselves on the right side of Jewish history, not stuck forever in the first part of Tisha B'Av, not realizing that there's a second part as well.